All right, let's talk about inbound call compliance and the required disclosures. Now, a lot of businesses will ignore this part because they think that an inbound caller is free game. That's definitely not true. TCPA has closed that loophole. You do need to immediately disclose the agent's name and the business information. So basically state the company and the business and the business representative that's going to be taking this call. Then you need to talk about the purpose of the call. So explain why it's being conducted before you get into the full conversation, okay? Very important that you start it off. Say something like, this is Paul Clean from Pitchit. We're here to talk about AI software. Then get into consent confirmation. So the next thing you need to do is you'll want to ask or confirm for prior express written consent. And this is important because if there is no documented consent, then after that inbound call hangs up, you cannot contact them anymore for anything. They didn't consent to future contact just because they called in. They only consented to this exact conversation that they're having with you right now. So if you don't close them on that one phone call before they hang up, you actually can't contact them via text or voice using AI or robo-dialing ever again. And that might be a problem. And so it's important that you first disclose who you are, what the purpose of the call is, but then actually try to get or confirm prior express written consent from them. Next part is you need to provide opt-out instructions. So inform the consumers of their right to opt out of future calls or texts. If they do opt out on that call, then again, it falls back to the previous section we were talking about, where basically after that call, you just can't contact them again. And so you can conclude the call, right? But you can't contact them using robocalls or robotexts in the future. And so this is part of it. It's correlated. And then the other part, though, is after future communication, right? You still need to provide proper opt-out because the consent lasts forever until they revoke consent. And that means every time you touch base with this person, you have to offer opt-out capabilities. You can't just call them 50 times in the future and never let them opt out of that and revoke it. So clearly offering opt-out options during every call, every text is really critical. And then logging the request promptly and immediately suppressing across all outreach systems is another thing you have to do. So for example, if this person inbound calls, they get through consent confirmation, and then you call them the next day and they opt out, that means you can no longer text them either. Text and call both carry the same opt-out requirements. And so if they opt out via voice, that means they're opting out of voice and text. If they opt out via text, that means they're opting out of text and voice. Basically, once they opt out, you can't call them anymore. They revoke consent permanently until you capture prior express written consent again. Final bit, record keeping. This is where software is really helpful. You do need to record and keep records of all contact via text and call, the date and timestamp, the consent verification, any opt-out requests that they have, as well as, this is another part, notes. So what did you call them for? What was the outcome of the call? What were the insights gleaned from the call? It's so hard to do these things and keep all these records when you're doing manual work. It almost necessitates some version of AI or software to help you, because these records must be updated regularly, stored securely, and serve as evidence in any future disputes. So without further ado, that concludes inbound call compliance and the required disclosures for TCPA.